Good evening, everyone. I now have 6 o'clock. I'm not sure that we have enough folks here, though. I would call the March 23rd Administrative and Finance Committee meeting to order. Ms. Only, if you would please call the roll so we can see if we have a quorum.
Yes, sir. Maloney,
Here.
McBride, Joe Walker,
McBride here.
yes, ma'am. Overture Walker, Mackey. We do have a quorum.
We do. Okay, thank you, Ms. Only. The first order of business on the agenda is the approval of the minutes, number 2A. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. McBride. And was that a second, Ms. Mackey? I can't hear you. I don't know if it doesn't show that you're muted, but we can't hear you, or I can't hear you.
I can't hear either.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll second it just so officially we have it then. But I do have I do have one question before we take the vote, and that's on page 10 of our agenda. On page 10, there are 3 items at the end of the second paragraph, and as Mr. J. Walker moved, second by McBride, to forward to council with a recommendation to approve the proposed development. It says it in that one, it says it in the next one, letter C, and it says it in the next one, letter D. I believe I pointed out at that meeting that we are not, as a council, approving proposed developments. I want to make sure these minutes reflect it correctly, because we don't want somebody coming back saying, hey, council, you approved the development. We are only approving the fact that there is sewer availability for the capacity these individuals requested for these developments. So if we could make sure that that is reflected in the minutes, I would appreciate it. So having said that, I guess the motion would be as amended if the maker of the motion agrees to that. Ms. McBride?
Which one was that?
It was on all of the sewer availabilities. Yeah.
Okay, I will accept it.
Okay, and then as the seconder of the motion, I'll accept it also. So we are approving the minutes as amended. There's only, if there's no further discussion, if you would please call the vote.
Maloney,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Joe Walker, Overture Walker, Mackey.
Yes.
Motion.
Did you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we hear you now.
Miss Only, did you get me for the roll?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the approval of agenda. I would like to, before we make a motion for this, ask that this be renumbered. I had spoken with the administrator earlier in the week. Actually, it was the end of last week I spoke with him, and it was agreed that these should have been put in a different order. The last one, letter F as in Foxtrot, should be first, because that is a grant that is time sensitive, and we need to make sure we either forward to council with or without a recommendation for approval. And the one above it, E as in Echo, it's an amendment for a contract. Again, same thing. It's time sensitive to my knowledge, and we need to have those things taken care of. And I don't know what length or time of conversation we'll have on any of the others. So I would recommend re-lettering the agenda so that it would be F, E, A, B, C, D. So I would accept the motion for that. And any discussion around it.
So
Say the
moved.
order again.
It would be the last one, F as in Foxtrot, E as in Echo, and then A, B, C, D.
Okay. Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Ms. McBride.
I have questions about 5, but in terms of clarification, but we're doing E and F, so do you want me to wait or?
No, well, that's pending analysis, no action required, but it is part of the agenda. So if you'd like to, let's get it done now.
Okay, quickly, I'm not sure why it's pending analysis. Could you help with that explanation?
Mr. Chair, if I may address the
Yes,
committee?
I'm just going to ask staff to do it. Go ahead, Ms. Thomas.
Yes, Ms. McBride. It's pending analysis because we actually recognize the fact that you had asked us to move forward with this, and we are doing analysis. What our analysis has revealed, though, is that this study is very expensive, and what we hope to do is to be able to address that in the coming budget year with a recommendation during the budget cycle.
Well, I don't know whether a fiscal analysis is needed right now.
To be able to make any of those changes and to be able to appropriately make the decisions, we have to have a disparity study done. So that would have to be part of that analysis, we believe.
The motion was to instruct the administrator to look at it. So that's what you would be doing and coming back with that analysis in terms of fiscal analysis.
Yes, ma'am. That is what we will be doing, is coming back.
Right. So that's why I don't see where that is needed now, because the motion is to move forward with the discussion with the administrator.
Yes, ma'am. I think the thoughts from the administrator were that to be able to have those discussions, we would need to be able to quantify what would be involved in being able to make a recommendation to you.
Well, you're already doing that discussion. I would just like Mr. Brown to speak on it, because you're already doing it, which I'm glad you are, because I've been sort of working on it for a while. So I'm still not quite agreeing with, I think we're saying the same thing, but in a different way.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. McBride. I think that you are. So there are going to be some general discussions that we have about this, as we've talked about, but we also want to be able to look at, for example, the actual impacts that we are experiencing or not experiencing concerning our businesses and who's getting what funding throughout the county. But I think what Ms. Lori is simply saying is, as a part of that, in order for it to have an outside persons come in and provide us with that information and not be a staff-led discussion where we might not have all the necessary feedback that we need to get, that study itself will require funding, and that funding is something that I think she was addressing in terms of the next budget cycle, because that disparity study, as we've learned from looking at disparity studies across at least several states now, that we're talking about somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000, if I'm not mistaken. So I think what Ms. Lori was simply saying is the fiscal side of it was referring to the fact that we did not previously budget that, because this was not something that was previously accounted for in this current year's budget. I think that's where the fiscal information is coming from, not from the actual looking into how the county is compared to other agencies in terms of the various entities they do business with in their community.
Okay,
help,
what
Ms.
I'm saying
McBride?
is, yeah, I understand the fiscal impact that you're not sure of, but my motion is so that you can begin to look at all these things that you're doing. So that's just part of the motion. I wouldn't expect all of that. You could come back with that later, but you need
Sure.
to begin the process now, which you are
Yes, ma'am.
doing. So I don't see why holding it back from keeping you would
If I might,
have an impact on the motion. In fact, you will be doing what I'm requesting you to do.
if I might interject, Ms. McBride, in reviewing the motion, the language does say to instruct staff to conduct an assessment and provide recommendations. And from what I'm hearing is the staff hasn't had the time right now to complete an assessment to provide recommendations. And that's usually what happens on motions that ask for information that needs to come back for the council, or for, in this case, for the committee to act on. Therefore, they would not have information to provide to us at this point in time. So I see what they're saying, and that's why it's held under the analysis section.
Well, if you read the entire motion, which is long, which I did the research on it, there are a lot of different parts in it. And the first part is for staff to begin looking, which they say they're already doing it. They don't have to come back until the recommendation is going to be a while. And so while they're looking at the fiscal analysis and all of that, we could be moving forward.
I hear what you're saying, but again, I'm just looking at the main motion that's here in front of us.
I know that's part of the main motion. All of the motion was not included. So I had an outline of a number of things, because if you can't do the elaborate one, they're saying $500,000, which they're not sure of. There are different components that could be addressed. So I'm saying, let's begin for staff to begin looking at what can be done.
I understand. I took the other 2 pages that were with this to be backup documentation to help staff move forward in this. But right now, Mr. Administrator, Mr. Brown, do you or your staff have any info on this that can be provided to us that would allow us to move forward in any way?
I would say we have some general information related to these types of studies and what we have seen communities similar to Richland County do. And so we have that information that we could provide that could be a step forward associated with moving this project forward, sir.
Okay, I would say, based on the fact you don't have anything really to provide other than a shell of information, that we're going to keep that one under items pending analysis. If when we get to that point there is time, if you'd provide what you do have, please, sir.
Well, I would hope that if we have to wait till the budget period, that's going to put us another 6 months behind, wherein they could at least start doing the analysis, looking at the information of the committees and everything, at least begin to look at what's needed.
I understand, Ms. McBride, but they don't have it now. We need to resolve this.
But they need to bring it back at the next committee.
As I'm saying, we need to resolve it at the end of the meeting, because it does say no action required. We are discussing it and taking action on it right now. And I believe we really need to move forward with the item.
I don't mind moving forward, but also there was a approval of agenda and some changes were made. And that's why this was brought up for discussion, Mr. Maloney.
I understand that. We didn't approve it yet. You asked about
That's right.
the change and I said we can discuss it. So
That's true. So we're in proper order, I believe.
yeah, we're in proper order. So at this
Thank you.
point, we're going to vote on the agenda, which is as amended, changing those bottom 2 items to 1 and 2, and then having A, B, C, and D, and 5 being a pending analysis at this point in time. So
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. No further discussion. If hearing none, Ms. Only, if you'll call the vote, please.
Malinowski,
Yes?
McBride,
Yes.
Joe Walker, Overture Walker,
He said yes.
Yes, I did say,
Mackey.
I unmute myself.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, the first item for action, Mr. Overture Walker, you weren't here, I don't think, but we've re-lettered this. We're dealing with F as in Foxtrot first, then E as in Echo second, and then A, B, C, and D. So we're on F, purchase of portable X-ray equipment for the coroner's office. That's on pages 42 through 50 of our agenda. Mr. Brown.
Yes, sir. I do have the coroner's office should be on, as well as Dr. Thompson, who's been working with them on this particular item. So I'm going to ask him to speak up on this matter, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. Brown. Let me appreciate it. Mr. Malinowski, John Thompson, may I be recognized, sir?
Yes, Dr. Thompson, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So we have, as Administrator Brown mentioned, we have the coroner's office, Dr. Bill Stevens, who's the forensic anthropologist, deputy coroner there. And so he's going to present this item. It is regarding the acquisition of an x-ray machine. The price range is $41,000. And so he's bringing this item before you so that we can pursue funding from DHEC as by way of a grant fund to pay for this machine. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bill Stevens. Dr. Stevens.
Hello, council and administrators. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, Dr. Stevens.
Bill Stevens here. Thank you so much for considering this. I became aware of DHEC's healthcare preparedness grant recently and decided that it would be a great way to get some funding for identified gaps in our ability to respond to mass disasters and being more prepared for purposes of identifying human remains. So we have had an anthropology lab, as many of you may be aware, since 2016 in our building at Shakespeare, but continue to be reliant upon Prisma Health and outside consultants such as a forensic dentist for making images. So within forensic anthropology, we have to use the tools available to us: DNA submission, dental record comparison, and x-rays of both the teeth and the skeleton to positively scientifically identify human remains. And we do this routinely at the coroner's office, at autopsy and off-site. And we see this as a way, applying for funding for this, as to increase our preparedness for multi-fatality situations, as well as the fact that the dentist who has assisted me for 20 years is medically retired, so we don't have his pro bono use of x-ray anymore. Having this on site is going to be ideal for us, and I'll try to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from my colleagues?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Mackey.
Yes. Questions to Mr. Brown. I don't know if he was able to pass them along to you, Mr. Stevens, or not, but wanted to, I guess, have a little bit better understanding as far as the grant. And is this a grant that you have been awarded, or what is the time frame for actually knowing if you will receive the grant, and the time frame for, I guess, reimbursement or refund?
Yes, ma'am. It's been kind of a learning experience for me, as I'm not used to a state grant, but the advisory council for DHEC met today, and the response from them is they should have approval. She says, once they let me know if they approved, I'll share it with you and then begin the process of a contract, which we hope to know maybe tomorrow or before the end of the week if they will award this to us for sure. They've said it's most likely we're going to do this. Then we could make the purchase and have you all review and be reimbursed. So she's putting a rush on it. This is Michelle Rowell of the Office of Public Health Preparedness, and she realizes that there is a June 30th deadline for everything to be approved by them, approved by you, purchased, and then reimbursed. So while I can't give you exact days, we are on it, and we are trying our best to get everything. And I'll communicate further with county administration and keep them posted on every development for the exact dates.
And if you are not awarded the grant, then it is assumed that you will not be able to pay back the money. Is that correct?
Or not go through with the purchase. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Dr. Stevens, I've got a couple then based on Ms. Mackey's questions and the responses you gave. Any purchase that you sign up for would have that stipulation in it as far as you have to get the grant first, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Also, I would like to know, do you have personnel that's qualified to operate this particular equipment?
We do. We have a certified radiology technician in our autopsy and property and evidence room who is fully qualified to run it.
Okay. Will there be any hidden costs that are going to come to us later, or something that we should know about at this point in time, or any kind of maintenance, upkeep, contracts, whatever it may be?
It is fully warranted and covered for 5 years by Min X-Ray, the company. It's a low dose microprocessor attached to a laptop, very portable, and it should require no further expenses, no archiving of films, just download of digital images to our existing computers. Nothing for 5 years. If it breaks after that, we would have to have the company service it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I'm done.
Thank you.
Mr. Livingston, I see your hand. You're muted, Paul.
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank Dr. Stevenson, Dr. Stevens and the coroner's office for actually pursuing this. It's obviously in the best interest of the county, particularly when it gets up to the advantage of the county and not have to pay for it. So I just want to commend you for following up on this.
Thank you very much.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, I'd entertain a motion on this one.
So move.
Okay, we got a motion
Second.
and a second. Ms. Only, Mr. Livingston, is that your hand still up, or you have something else?
I just didn't take it down. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Ms. Only, if you'll call for the vote, please.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Joe Walker, Overture Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, on to the next one, which is 4E, amendment to the food service contract. I see Director Myers is with us, so if there's any thing you'd like to provide to us, Mr. Myers, on this one, feel free to go ahead.
No, sir. I'm just here to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay.
It's related.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Director Myers? Yes, Mr. Brown.
Briefly, Mr. Chair, I was simply going to say that this item is really coming to us as a result of the pandemic. We're no longer able to utilize the same process we were using before, which is a combination of the services that we're currently being provided and detainee services. As a result, what you see is a reflection of those changes, sir.
Thank you, Administrator Brown. And it was based on what you said, and prior to you mentioning that I had a question, and that is, the detainees are there. The food people are still coming in to provide service. And so I'm wondering why, when I see the jobs that the detainee laborers would do, I don't see how the pandemic has ceased us from using detainees from that. A dishwasher, a pot and pan person, servers, general cleaners afterward. I don't see why that still could not have been done.
If I
Yes,
may,
sir, I can have, go ahead, Director Myers. Thank you, sir.
if I may, Chairman, I'll be recognized, please.
Yes, sir. Director Myers, go ahead.
The pandemic was part of the issue of why we have not been able to get inmate labor. However, for the last 3 years, what we've noticed is what I call right sizing of jails. The type of inmates that we used to be able to use, which was family court, are no longer coming to jail. And now all we get is the one that's charged with probably 15 to 30 day disorderly conduct or public drunkenness offenses. And those are actually have really dwindled down. COVID did take those away from us. So we have not been able to get the sentenced inmates because the jail is a pretrial facility. And we've always used sentenced inmates to do, as I would call the labor intensive stuff, and the food service people would do the cooking. For the past 3 years, that has been dwindling down significantly to where we have not been able to really provide, fulfill our end of the contract for food service.
Okay, so about how many permanent sentence inmates do you have there?
Since they qualified, and that's another, I should have mentioned the qualifier. We probably, out of 600 and our population about 690 now, we probably may have at best 25 sentenced, and most of them are waiting to go to the Department of Corrections. And our sentenced inmate population, I cannot use because most of them are charged with either high drug crimes or violent offenses, and I do not want them to be trustees. That would put us in a very bad state.
Okay, what was the first part you said prior to violent offenders?
I'm trying to remember what. Basically, we are, as I said, we are a pretrial facility. We probably at best have 25 people that sentenced that we can actually use. No, I shouldn't say actually use. Those people that are sentenced are normally the ones that go into the Department of Corrections and normally charged with murder, high drug offenses.
Okay.
And they don't qualify, and they do not qualify to be inmate workers.
Okay, well, I noticed that this is being requested to be retroactive through October of last year. Is there any reason this wasn't brought to us prior to this rather than 6 months, 5 or 6 months?
We were actually trying to work it out, but in fact, we were using some of our staff members from time to time to help the food service get the meals out, and we thought we could basically make some changes, but our food contractor agreed that they could not. We all sat down and thought about it. We could not fulfill the obligation, so they brought in additional people, and that's basically paying them back for the additional people they brought in since October.
Okay, and I don't know if this would be allowed, but would it be possible to put an ad out somewhere indicating that these type of employees would be needed on a temporary basis, temporary employees within the detention center at a lesser cost than what the actual group is, the Summit group is charging?
That would be a legal question. I can't answer that question. We possibly could hire them, but to be honest with you, that would not be temporary because I don't foresee us being able to use inmate labor forever, unless we can start, family court kicks up and we start getting a lot more civil inmates in charge with long-term sentencing. I don't see this happening whatsoever.
Okay, I think that takes care of my questions. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, may I be recognized?
Yes, Mr. Walker, then Ms. McBride.
And I guess my question is for Director Myers, and good evening to you, Director Myers.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I see you usually when I'm down there at the detention center. I may run into you. Well, I've ran into you rather from time to time over the years. So, and here's my question for you, though. In essence, what I'm gathering from your comments and what I read is that because of COVID, there has, I guess, I know there's been a push, and this is by virtue of me being a lawyer. I know there's been more emphasis placed on not detaining individuals or offenders when it comes to low-level crimes, things like you were saying earlier, but public disorderly conduct or trespassing. And I think even there was a push with respect to family court regarding arrest warrants for those individuals who may be behind on child support. So it's what you're saying, Mr. Myers, is that those were, I guess, those were your primary laborers or not laborers, but primary inmates that you would use for food service labor. But because of the impact that COVID has had on the criminal justice system and the push to not detain or arrest people for a lengthy period of time pre-trial, or the push to even have folks with that profile released from the detention center or various detention centers rather around not just not Wladischkin County, but around the state. that has had an impact on you all's ability to, to retain food service laborers? Is that what you're saying?
COVID is a small part of the problem.
Okay.
We were having this problem before COVID actually came out. But the inmates just, and I'll use this as an example. We released approximately 20 inmates from the facility due to COVID, through the public defender's office and private attorneys. None of those inmates none of those were detainees, excuse me, because all those were pretrial detainees. None of them would have qualified to be an inmate worker.
And when did this this issue begin, or when did you begin to notice it, Director Myers? Within the past few years? This has been
probably about 3 to 4 year trend. We've seen the jail population go down, and as the jail population goes down, we had less and less inmate workers that qualified for food service. We got inmate workers can do some of the manual grass cutting, but you need a qualified person, inmate to it. And I don't want to really get into it, but you need a qualified person to go in the kitchen because they all have to take a physical and blood test and all that. And those inmates do not qualify, and most of them don't qualify.
And when you say qualified, you need inmates that are qualified to, to perform food service labor.
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming those would be not just in the medical sense, but also we talking in terms of, the seriousness of the crime.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to put somebody who's charged with aggravated assault or rape or kidnapping in the kitchen.
No, sir. Those were not going. No, sir. They would not go in the kitchen.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, and so, and I guess this is now a comment that I'm about to make, Mr. Myers. So it seems to me then, based on the timeline that you've given in terms of what you, as far as when you began to notice, the number of eligible food service laborers, dwindle was probably about 3 years ago, and that seems to coincide around the time where there's been a push, not just nationally, but even here in South Carolina with the judicial system, to not detain pre-trial those individuals charged with low-level misdemeanor crimes. And that seems to be the group where you would say folks who would qualify to service laborers.
You hit the nail right on the head, because basically what we have now is felony violent offenders. The majority of our people we have are felony violent offenders.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Myers. I appreciate your time and your service.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Ms. McBride.
Just briefly, Mr. Myers, so we're asking to amend the budget, but in the new budget, we will need additional funding also. Is that not correct?
Yes, ma'am. And then we've asked for additional funding in the upcoming biannual budget. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I always have this issue, Mr. Myers. So for the other council members who are not aware of my issue, in the detention facilities, they are detainees. Now, some of them are waiting to move to corrections. You may call them inmates, but the others are detainees because they're innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, thank you for correcting me, ma'am.
You're welcome.
You through, Ms. McBride?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. One last thing, Director Myers, and that's where you had a list of the cost of meals based on the population, and then those for religious purposes. There's a cost in there for staff meals. Is staff, if they want to buy a meal there, is that what it is?
No, sir. We actually feed staff because basically they really don't get a lunch break. We say they have 30 minutes, but they're on call the whole time. So we basically furnish them meals.
And that's what that $2,960 is for? Is that on a monthly basis then?
Yes, sir. I believe so.
Okay, thank you, sir. If there are no further questions, Ms. McBride, your hand's up. Is that from before? It was, okay. There are no further questions, Ms. Olney. If you, first we need a motion on this matter.
So move.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. With no further discussion, Ms. Olney, if you will call for the vote, please.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Joe Walker, Overture Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
If I could, please, I would like to ask for a motion for reconsideration of these last two items, E and F. Or don't we need that here, Ms. McLean? It's going to the full council.
Typically wouldn't do a reconsideration to go to full council, no, sir.
That's what, okay. Very good. Then we'll move on with number 4A. Request for approval of willingness to serve for a proposed development, Ridge Road subdivision, Old Leesburg Road tract. Director Davis, I saw you somewhere. There you are. You'd like to, is there anything you'd like to advise the committee about here? Has it pretty much all been written?
It's all been written, sir. These are basically just simple willingness to serve letters that we are just making you aware of so that council can have had full consideration of the two developments.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there any discussion on this? If there is,
Mr. Chair,
yeah, Ms. Mackey.
I did have one question. And I don't know if it's a typo or not, but I just wanted to be sure because, you know, we've had a lot of discussion lately from residents regarding the recent sewer increase. And in here, we say that the monthly sewer charge will be $64. And should that be $64.03?
Yes, ma'am. I apologize. I did mark that on my paper to be corrected. And the total number for income with regard to that would be $26,892.60. I caught that earlier. Thank you very much. I forgot about it, actually.
Yes, we have to make sure we're charging everybody the same rate.
Yes, ma'am.
Is the $64 correct or not?
It's incorrect, sir. It's 6403.
Okay.
One of them's right. I have 50% on the number there. That's completely my fault.
Okay, so we're going to be, anything that's passed will be, if it will just have that corrected by the time it gets to the full council, please, at 6403, and then that total number also of 26,892.60.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Would we
All right.
need to have that edited? Excuse me. I'm sorry, sir.
No, go ahead.
Would we need to have that edited tonight? Is that going to go to council tonight?
No, it won't be to council to that first meeting in April.
Oh, yes, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Sorry, sir.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone? If not, I would entertain a motion on this item.
So
Mr.
moved.
Chair, so move.
Yes, Ms. McBride, is that you?
Oh, I was just moving it. I think someone else moved, so I second it.
Okay, fine. Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Only, if you would call the vote, please.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Joe Walker, Overture Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next one, 4B, a very similar thing, just a different area. Request for approval of willingness to serve for a proposed development, Collins Cove subdivision at Guys Road, Chapin, South Carolina. I just point out that this one, it says 21 to 26, the pages, it's actually page 21 to 25. Is there any discussion on this one? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion on this item.
So move.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Ms. Only, if you will call the vote, please.
Malinowski,
Yeah.
McBride,
Yes.
Joe Walker, Overture Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next one, 4C, a fiscal year 22 proposed budget calendar, and the pages on this one should be 26 through 29. Is there any discussion on this one? I think
Mr. Chair, if I may address for a moment, please.
Yes, Ms. Thomas, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I apologize for not being able to use my camera. My system is giving me a little bit of technical difficulty.
Okay.
The one item that is worth noting here is that this year we are asking for an annual budget with a proposed balanced second year. One of the reasons for this is that COVID has impacted us significantly for the last 2 fiscal years. And at this point in time, we believe that it's going to carry into another fiscal year. With a proposed budget, we would not be looking at as many budget amendments, and we would not be asking council to make a commitment based upon information that may not be as accurate as it possibly could be. We're also proposing 4 workshops to allow council to appropriately vet our proposals, and we would have the budget books to council on April the 9th this year.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. I don't need to ask my question now. You have just fully answered it. Thank you. And I think when this gets to council, because I was going to make the recommendation because of the fact under staff's recommended action, it does just comment on what it recommends proceeding with. I think we need to let everyone know that this eliminates the biennium budget and goes to an annual budget, and then your reasons for it, because that wasn't stated here. And if it was just voted on as it is, folks may not realize we're eliminating the biennium budget. So I would like to see that clarification there, please.
Yes, sir. I'll be happy to make that change.
Okay. Any, Ms. McBride?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Council staff is recommending that we eliminate the biennial budget, which we, as an audience, passed several years back. Is this complete elimination, or is this just elimination due to COVID for this year?
Ms. Thomas, would you care to answer that, please?
Yes, sir, I can. At this point, Ms. McBride, it would be for the next 2 years. And then we could consider that again. We were certainly willing to work with whatever council's will is. We just believe at this point in time that an annual budget would allow us more flexibility given the uncertain economic factors at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney.
You're welcome, Ms. McBride. And having heard that answer, Ms. Thomas, in your write-up for council, if you would, I would think that you should put that in there, since McBride brought it to the attention here, that the recommendation is for eliminating the biennium budget for the next 2 years, and then it can be picked up again unless council should decide otherwise.
Yes, sir, I'll be happy to.
Okay. Thank you. I see no other hands. Any further discussion on this item? If not, I would entertain a motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve and a second. Ms. Olney, if you would call for the vote, please.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
No.
Overture Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. The next item is 4D, approval of award of engineering services pavement management study. That's on pages 30 and 31 of our agenda. Is there someone that would like to address this for us?
Mr. Malinowski, we have DPW on the line. We have Director Maloney on here, and he can respond to that.
Okay, go ahead, Director Maloney.
Yes, sir. This goes back to starting with council last June. We talked about staying with a data-driven system for evaluating pavements and which roads go in which sequence throughout the 11 districts of the county. This has last been done about 6 years ago, and our intention is to do this every 6 years. The in between in bienniums, we would conduct an observation type review of the pavements for wear and tear to alter the pavement ratings. But in between that, we'd use this computerized system. We also have County Engineer Staley, who's been with us through that program. I believe the last evaluation was done maybe in connection with the penny, and it covered all the roads that happen to be in the county. where we would be doing our county maintained roads, about 600 miles of paved road with this evaluation.
Okay, questions? If you want to think about some, go ahead. I have one I'll start with then. That's under your, on page 31, where it's got strategic and generative discussion. In the second line, it says, this was contracted by the Transportation Penny Department in order to prioritize which paved roads within the county maintenance system needed to be repaired or resurfaced. Are you saying this current one that you're asking for is contracted, or are you referring to the one done in July 2015?
That was,
Go ahead, sir. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Staley.
Mr. Malinowski, that was the one done in 2015.
Okay, if it was done by the Transportation Penny Department, then why wouldn't they do it now?
Sir, I believe they were evaluating all the roads at the time to line up their packages for resurfacing and for roads that they were going to be doing. Those road packages are, all set. We're doing it for our, ongoing maintenance, in continuation, into the future.
Okay, you also state further down, right above additional comments for consideration, that one sentence paragraph, it says request for proposals. It was issued and there were 5 responses, an evaluation team scored them and gave Weston and Sampson as the highest ranked offer. As I have requested every time we come up with one of these, I'd like to see the 5 responses and exactly where we stand with all 5 and why Weston and Sampson was chosen. So
Mr. Malinowski, may I be recognized?
Yes, Ms.
Jennifer.
Wladischkin.
Yes, this is Jennifer, the procurement manager, and I will have that information to you by tomorrow, and we'll give it to the clerk for distribution to full council.
Okay, and I don't necessarily need it by tomorrow, but one way or the other, this will go forward either with or without, with a recommendation for approval or denial. And just at the time it gets to council, if you'd have it in there, please,
Yes, sir.
for everyone to see. Okay, I've got Ms. McBride followed by Ms. Mackey.
Okay, just 2 quick questions. The request for proposal, did you submit an amount of money, or was it just an open request for proposal?
Yes, ma'am, it's Jennifer. We did not include a budget amount. We typically do not announce the budget for our projects. We let the vendors give us pricing and then would negotiate the fee structure for the highest ranked offerer.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering regarding item 5. The other question is that we've had this issue before, in terms of sometimes all of the pavement would get done in one district. In the request for proposal, did we look at how we would distribute to make sure that every district receives some payments, or is that a part of the job of the evaluators coming in?
Oh, Ms. McBride, that would, this is just to get the information on and rate all the roads that are county roads. After that's done, then we can look at how to disperse the future paving projects.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Mackey.
Yes, if this company is selected, what is their turnaround time for completing the evaluation?
Ms. Mackey.
Can y'all hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you for a second there, but yeah, usually it takes about 6 months from start to finish. But we'll nail that down for sure when we have the kickoff meeting with them.
Okay.
Okay, that's it then, Ms. Mackey. Ms. McBride, you're done on that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, hearing no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
So move.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Ms. Only, if you will call for the vote, please.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Overshaw Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and that brings us to our last item on the agenda, which is number 5, items pending analysis, no action required. And the motion is there as written by Ms. McBride. And Ms. McBride, if you would please, I'd ask you to please let us know exactly what it is that you would like to have done with this motion as we move along with it, please, so staff is a little clearer on what you're looking for.
Yes, sir. Mr. Malinowski, I would like for staff to begin looking at how we would do the evaluation in terms of contracting it out and what would be necessary. I understand that they said they did some research on different cost factors, and I don't know what companies they research, but I also know that oftentimes you put a bid out or look at different things so you can determine the amount. So I'm not sure that high 500,000 or $1 million. I saw where it could go from 10,000 to $1 million. So I'm not satisfied with that answer. And then we need to look at other options, but to come back at least with an understanding of what needs to be done. The purpose is it to have an outside evaluator, because I wouldn't want staff to evaluate themselves.
Okay, so go ahead.
And so my issue is to begin to move this forward, and with the knowledge that understanding that staff would eventually come back with us with an amount, but to wait until after the budget, until the budget starts would put us too far behind. And we would not have a chance to look at and maybe adjust what needs to be done.
Okay, do you think, I'll address this one to Administrator Brown. Administrator Brown, hearing what Councilwoman McBride just provided you, is there any reason that that you cannot begin to move it forward by possibly creating some type of a request for proposal even? That would give us an idea of who can do something out there. Would that help, Ms. McBride, in starting it?
I think that would help in doing that research. That's what I'm asking for us to give them the approval to start looking at that, even if it's what's included in a request for proposal, what's needed, what can we do or what we cannot do at this point, even if we have to phase it in.
Okay, Administrator Brown, you think that's?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We can do that. I think I hear a little bit more clear now what Ms. McBride is saying. It sounds like she's talking about, building the information out and not coming to you with the completed information. So I believe I understand what she's asking now, sir. And we're going to follow up with Ms. McBride as well on a separate follow-up to this meeting, sir.
And I'll be more than happy to work with them.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McBride. And on this one, then, I think we could, if there's going to be something coming forward, if council's going to have to approve something on this in the next meeting, then we need to put it as an action item. For example, if council has to approve sending out the request for proposals or approving some of the things that are going to be asked for in that request for proposal, I think we need to put that as an action item so we, as a committee, can decide what to do and get it to the council, even though we understand it will be done in phases. It won't be all completed at once.
Right, because I did a long motion intentionally because I put a lot of different parts in it because there's an advisory council. There's a lot that can be done if we just phase it in.
Okay. All right, so Mr. Brown, you're clear now. Ms. McBride, you're going to be getting with the staff and get this, so when this comes back to committee, we'll have a little more info to work on, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate that. All right. Is there anything else for the good of the county that we need to discuss tonight? Hearing nothing, then our last item on here, number 6.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, got a motion
Second.
and a second. Ms. Roney, if you would call for the vote, please.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Overture Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. See you in a few minutes at the next meeting.